Okay, this video is to walk us through the third unit project, which is to make a song your style. Of course, this song is my style and may not apply to your style, but hopefully we get a lot of different styles of songs here. And so as you watch through this video, if there's a section that doesn't apply to you, for example, if you're not adding a vocal track, skip all of step 6, which is going to be a long step because there's a lot of sub-steps to that. So I'll leave timestamps in the description to help you with skipping around through this video. And hopefully this video will also be better organized than last unit's video. You can see here on the screen my plan of the different chapters. We're going to talk about song inspiration, experimenting, how you have to kind of repeat those 2 steps until you get something that you like enough to commit some time to. It may take some persistence, that may take some patience, and you might want to get help. I'm happy to sit down and brainstorm with you if you're stuck in kind of the 1, 2, and 3 steps. Next up, you start to build the tracks, make decisions about how exactly that's going to look. That should say fine tuning, not find tuning. How does this work? This should let me get back in here. There we go. Okay. Fine tuning the rhythm and pitch. Once you have some basic tracks in there, what is it that isn't quite sounding right? And how do you fix that? The vocal process took me a lot of different steps. I'll walk you through my process of how that worked. And then last step, which I'm actually going to do on screen right now, is the mixing step, where we adjust the volume and the equalizer to give it a good all-around sound and also to make sure we can hear every part of the song. So if any of those chapters is helpful to you, go ahead and watch that. And either way about it, make sure to reach out for help if you're feeling stuck. All right, so switching up my share here. My inspiration went a lot of places. Oh, and I need to share my sound on this. Let me restart that share. Share sound. Okay. So I started with this idea. I think I should actually open it. Where I wanted just everything to build and get really loud and overlapping. Like part orchestral inspiration, because I really like classical music, but also part kind of like background ambiance modern music, like something you'd hear played at Meow Wolf or something. I started with this French horn tune, added a pad, matched the chords of the tune, faded out the tune, added another pad that had more notes. You can see it's building to that layered intense effect. Added some texture, added lead. At the end, brought the French horn back. The idea was to kind of do a French horn duet with the lead. And you can't really hear the French horn right now. Anyway, I don't remember what made me give up on this. I will call out that, oh, let's not make new notes. The way I recorded this sine lead was a new way that I really liked. You can see it's set in B flat and for the major pentatonic scale. That meant that I could just click my mouse on this keyboard here and make a cool sounding sound. So I just kind of was vibing as I was recording that. It was playing, I was listening to it, and I was going, that sounds good. And that's how I got this sound. Anyway, didn't end up using that. Felt like it was going to take too much work to get to the place I wanted to. And also having this much MIDI in here, because every single one of these is a computerized note, the computer has to think about every single dot you see as it plays it. It was making it lag so much. And I think that was another part of why I gave up on it. This one is, it's weird. I was trying to make the background track be my voice. And I've always loved a cappella music, but as you can hear, the sound isn't that great.
blue sky and catch a soft cloud.
And yeah, I was like, not feeling confident about this one, so I abandoned it as well. Last one that hit better, and the inspiration for this I actually have a picture of. I was driving, I was feeling really happy about the morning and the day and just the blue sky and the leaves and the gold sunshine and how traffic was kind of, there were a lot of people on the road, but it was moving quickly. It was just a really good time. I snapped this picture when I was at a standstill because traffic had stopped, and I was like, I could make this into a song. I could make an instrument track to represent each of the things about this morning that's making me so happy, like one for the blue sky, one for the clouds, one for the trees, one for the light post, one for the traffic, one for the road. And then I could make some song and lyrics to it because I love making song and lyrics. And that's what ended up really working for me because it gave me a structure for all the little pieces. Um, if that works for you, recommend it. It was a good time. So that's the song I ended up going with. And that's why I wanted to say I think it's a cycle at the beginning there of inspiration, experimentation, and then you may have to repeat that a couple times. Get an idea, try it. If you don't like it, don't put too much time into it. But then also maybe get some help. Be like, hey, I want to do a song based on this, but it's not working. What can I do? That's not the one I thought I opened. There we go. All right, so like I said, I started with the blue sky. I made some chords that I felt like represented the way a blue sky sounds. The chords, the way I picked this, I picked the key of B flat, which is these notes. And then I was like, well, I want to go down, but I want to be weird. So I went outside of the key of B flat. The key of B flat uses those notes. But instead of sticking with them and staying in key, I started in key, but then immediately it should be an A natural in the key of B, but instead I used an A flat. C is within the key and E flat is within the key. So the A flat was really the only unexpected note. And because it's further away from B flat, it kind of makes it sound calmer. That's a calmer sound than, right? So I think that's why that works. I did not think through all of those details, except that I wanted to go outside of key signature a little bit and be a bit weird. From there, I went way far outside of key signature with the G chord. Because the B chord has our tone note. We are in the key of B flat, and I don't play B flat, I play B instead. And so that's why that sounds like we've gone somewhere weird and where we did not expect to go, which, you know what? Sometimes the blue sky is like that. It's so much, it's bigger than our thoughts. So we go there, we depart just a little bit with A flat, and then we go into wild, weird territory with G. And then I was like, oh no, I have to get back because I'm going to loop this and I need to somehow get from this very distant chord all the way back to our home chord of B flat. And so it doesn't sound weird because going straight to B flat right here, oops. From there to that just didn't sound super great to me. So instead I made a transitional step of changing the G chord to a G minor, which gets us back in key, but G minor is really close to G major. And then I used a chord that we do expect to hear in the key of B flat, which is the E flat major chord, which is the 4 chord for this key. So 1, 2, 3. This is the 4th note, and we use the 4 chord all the time. So I made an E flat chord. Except I moved those notes down so they overlap. You can see that the top 2 notes here are G and B flat, which is the same as 2 of the notes I was already playing. We have that G and B flat there, and all I had to do was move that top note up to make it into an E flat major chord. And that's how I ended this little loop and got us back to our home chord of B flat. Now, obviously, I've been playing around with chords for a very long time, and so that's why all these things came to me. You don't have to understand why it sounds great. You can also just play with it and change things until you do hear a sound you like. Either way, once you get to a sound you like and you have something built, great. And yeah, that's the Blue Sky. That's how I built it. I looped it. This plays for the entire rest of the song until I slow it down at the very last bit. So foundational, and obviously that kind of matches the picture too, because Blue Sky doesn't really change a whole lot. The next thing I added was this drive bass to represent the road, because that's the other thing that's just ever present and constant. And I made it match the chords. I wrote down my chords in my notes over here with the rhythm for them. B flat, 1, 2, 3, because B flat for the first beat and then 3 more beats to make a total of 4 for 4 time. B, 2, 3, 4. A flat, 2, 3, 4. G, 2, 3, 4. And then G minor and E flat were both short. I did that because I wanted to have 4 measures, 4 groups of 4 in the loop, because it just is nice that way. It balances out. Our ears like that sound. So I only had 1 measure left to get back to B, and it also is kind of nice to move fast all of a sudden. So then G minor just has 2 beats and E flat has 2 beats. And I wrote that all down there so I could see that and remember that as I was going to try to build other tracks. For the bass track, I tried to give it a little more life and energy. And I think it also kind of looks like those dotted lines in the middle of the road, which is kind of cool. And then that loops as well. That never changes. Next thing I added was the fall trees. And I also spent some time picking the instruments for each of these until I had the sound I really liked. And for this one, this really adds a lot of texture because there's hundreds of leaves on every tree, right? So I wanted it to still follow the same chords, but have a lot of motion to it. And so in measure 5 here, you can see there's way more notes than any of the other pieces had, and they are still all B flat notes. You can see this is a low B flat, this is F, high B flat, and D, F. And here we go up to an even, that's a transitional note. So I added that for a little bit of color. It's not actually part of the chord. Okay, it didn't look like it was playing. There we go. All of those layered together sounds like this. I added the light posts. They're kind of the weirdest sound. This is what I used to make the light posts. It's like I wanted to get the sound of, you know, when something rushes past you and it goes whoosh, because that's how I feel like light posts are. But I also wanted it to be low, and it ended up sounding kind of weird and alienish. I also didn't space them evenly. I did make them match with the chord that was playing when they play. And I sped them up later in the song. It really doesn't match the rest of the sound of the song. Let's see if I can get it to sound. Well, I don't want you to hear the drums mixed in yet. Okay, there we go. So yeah, it to me it sounds a little more like alien sci-fi kind of sound than light post kind of sound, but I kind of like it. It was a bit of a surprise there, and I'm keeping it. Next up, I added the drums. These are mostly auto drums. Like this is how it came. But I simplified it a little bit. Their drums are always more energetic than I'm personally looking for. But I'll be the first to admit I'm not super confident when it comes to making rhythms. Um, I tried to trust myself instead of getting caught up on, oh, I don't know how to do this. Instead to just go, okay, but what sounds good? Do you like the sound? Then it's good. It doesn't matter if it's the right way to do it or not. If you like the sound, then it's a good thing because the point here is to make a sound that you like the sound of. So yeah, a couple different patterns that I used to speed up or slow down the intensity. I stayed away from cymbals just because they're not really my thing. I did have to change some of them. You can do that by changing, you just click here and it'll play a different one. You can also, I'm trying to remember how you get there. There's a way to pull it up and it lets you play the drums with your keyboard instead, which I couldn't process all of that all at once. But then I assigned the traffic to be part of, or the drums to represent part of the traffic. So they come in here. These are all staggered to slowly build so that you can hear one element kind of at a time. And then I wanted to kind of make a little bit of a sparkle. Maybe this is the sunshine and the clouds that just kind of a bit of, it's always there. It's high, free, lighthearted. And this, I use that same technique that I first figured out on the first song I showed you, where I set the keyboard to the key of B flat and the pentatonic scale. Now, the pentatonic scale, I should mention, that's where it's only the notes that are really peaceful and cute sounding with each other. So major pentatonic, it's impossible to play a bad sound. And that's what I did to record this. I don't know why it keeps bugging out on how it's playing. There's that. There's one more instrument I added in, which is the guitar. It's called Dirty Power Chords. I wanted a really rock sound for this because I feel like Traffic, there's no other sound than for a rock sound. Now, I'm not super pleased with the way the guitar synth sounds here, but I think it was the best I could get. Might revisit that eventually. Didn't bring this track in till almost halfway through the song when the chorus starts, um, because it's so loud and there's so much else going on that I wanted everyone to be able to hear first. Oh, we've got a vocal track working there. Okay, let's try that again. Hopefully it doesn't get crazy. Maybe zooming in will give it less to visually show me. And that's how that sounds. That's the traffic. Those are all the parts that represent something. All that's left is the voice. Um, I did, I used, and it's really cool sounding. Turns out BandLab has a voice synthesizer called the Solo Female Awe. I really like the sound of it. It's one of the better voice synthesizers I've ever heard. And so I almost just left it at that because writing the lyrics and the chords, the verses was taking me a while, and I wanted to get this video out to you guys. But that's what that sounds like. And if you want a vocal effect, but you would be like, I'd want someone else to sing it, let me recommend this voice synthesizer that's in BandLab because it sounds pretty cool. And it's kind of a weird, like maybe a robot singing this kind of vibe, which could be really cool. So if you're not adding an actual voice to this is the finished full song. We've got it sounding like this over here. And this is beyond what I would give an A or a B2 for your work here. You don't have to add a vocal track. There's a lot going on here. It's clearly a style. It's put together. And you're able, if you made this, you'd be able to talk about all the reasons why you chose everything. We're up to step 4. That's I should take to step, so that's building the tracks and the decisions I made to build them. Kind of in between building the tracks, I did some fine tuning because when I first put in, for example, the fall trees, they were a little off. And what I found was as I looped it, it got more and more off. And so then what I was hearing just did not sound great. So what I needed to do was go in and go, okay, measure 5 starts here and ends here. All of the notes for that B flat chord need to fit and end precisely in measure 5, measure 6, measure 7. Measure 8 has a chord for the first 2 beats and a different chord at 8.3, beat 3 of measure 8 and 8.4. And then I had to very carefully cut the end. I can just show you this. I had to very carefully remove any unwanted space at the end using this button so that it ended precisely at 9, so that then when I looped it, there wasn't a tiny little bit extra that would build up over time. For example, if it ended like here, you might not realize that it didn't end right at 9. And then when you loop it, everything's just slightly off and it sounds really bad as the song goes on. So that's what I meant by fine-tuning rhythm. You want to just zoom in, double check that everything's in the right spot, especially if something is sounding out of time or like something's falling behind as you listen. What other things did I fine tune? I had that problem with a lot of things, and the latest one I had that with was the MIDI for the voice, the synthesized voice, as well as when I record, even though I'm singing on time with the MIDI track that shows me where I want my voice to be, the recorder shows up late in BandLab. And the same thing happened with when I had my keyboard plugged in and was playing these chords for the Fall Leaves track. It would have a delay for me to hear the sound. And so I kept playing slower than the song went because I couldn't play the next note when I hadn't heard the note I just played. I think BandLab just is slow when it comes to inputting sound in real time. And so if you do it that way, you might just end up having to drag the notes over, which is what I did as well. It would be like these notes were just over here a little bit, and I would select them all, drag them into the right spot, and make them in the right spot. So like it's fast to get it in by a keyboard or by singing with your voice, but then you are going to have to edit it a little bit to make sure it actually lands in the right time. What else did I fine tune? I fine tuned the pitch a little bit. Mostly the way I made sure that all of the notes sounded good as far as pitch, whether it's in the right chord or high or low or within the key. For the whistle, all I did was lock the keyboard into the B flat pentatonic scale, which meant I couldn't go wrong. Any note I sounded would sound great. For the others, sometimes it was just a matter of listening to it and going, oh, that doesn't sound great, and then going, oh, that's let's say this right here. That's an F sharp, and F sharp doesn't really belong in this key. So right now we're playing the chord of B flat. We should have an F natural. Which brings us to the vocal part. So we're on step 6 now, talking about how I did the vocal part. I started with, I listened to the song a bunch of times, obviously, as I was making it. And then I was like, okay, just sing the tune you think should go there. For me, I used to write my melodies out by like putting in MIDI notes and then try to learn to sing it. And when I did that, it always was hard for me to learn to sing it. It took a lot of practice. And then I also ended up hating the melody. So for me, I think what I figured out is that my instinct for what a tune should sound like really only comes when I actually sing it, which means I have to relax and not stress about it and say, this is just a trial attempt. It does not have to sound good. And in fact, I recorded this trial attempt of the melody sitting at my desk at the office at work. And it, my desk is right next to a giant fan, and so it does not sound great. And of course, I didn't have words yet. I don't know how many takes I did of this. I know this wasn't the first one I sang. I was like, oh, some of the things I just did I liked, so I'm going to do those again. But this part kind of flopped, and so I'm going to try something else. I wanted there to be a chorus. I was like, okay, what's chorusy feeling? And that's what I did here. If you don't feel like, if you want to add a voice and you don't feel like you make a tune this way, let me know. I'm happy to work with you on making it some other ways, help you make up a tune. It's hard to just pull ideas out of thin air, so I'm here to help with that. I just copied and pasted for verse 2 and the second chorus. And then, so that's step A, recording / writing the tune. But obviously this isn't great sound quality, and I couldn't record better sound quality at the work building. And I wanted to kind of nail down what am I actually singing to make sure I could actually get on pitch. And so what I did next is I copied that into MIDI. I listened to it. I found the same note with the keyboard open and in all the notes. This took a lot of fine tuning to match the rhythm. That rhythm was the hardest part on this. But it was just play that bit again, play that bit again, play that bit again. Speaking of, say you were trying to get the vocal, the MIDI to match just perfectly, but you're having a hard time with one section, you can click up here in the top measure bar and say, play just this part over and over. So it'll play it on loop. Which can be really helpful. And then when you click on it again, it frees you from that loop and you can move on. Okay, so yeah, I copied it into MIDI. I worked really hard on making sure the MIDI matched the actual rhythm of the vocal track. Then I got rid of, as in muted, that original vocal track, and that's how we now hear the synthesized tune. Oops, wrong button. So then, and I have not fully finished this process, what works for me is to take, all I did was the chorus. Take the rhythm of the chorus And I made dashes on my paper, which I'll show you a picture of, to represent the rhythm of that tune. I didn't go and write it out in half notes or quarter notes because that's too much work. I just made these dashes, da, 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 and then it's shorter, da, da, and then long again, da, 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 da. And then we have the high bit with a bunch of fast notes, da, 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 da. Last bit was kind of confusing for me, so you can see all those crossouts. From there, I just went at it over and over until I found words that matched both the strength of the note and the length of it. Like I could say, what could I say? I could say floating clouds. No, what experimental? Like I could make the word experimental fit here. Experimental. But I don't like that as much because I feel like these punchy, repeated low notes, da da da, sound good with single words on them that are all strong words. None of these are like and or I or if. They're all stronger, more important words. One leaf falls. And then I use the little short, unimportant words to fill in the quick moving notes. One leaf falls and I. Same thing. Now I drew obviously still thinking back to my inspiration picture here and that beautiful drive that I had into work in the morning where I'm talking about all the things about this day that were making me happy. Um, and yeah, that was my process for writing the lyrics. I got really stuck on some of them. Let's see. I had a hard time because this seemed like it wrapped up so fast. When I am driving on this clear October morning was all great, but then I realized I only have da 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 to finish it up. And I wanted to say stuff like it brings me peace, I'm connected with nature and I feel whole, stuff like that. Just there was not room for that. So this pit gave me some trouble. I ended up finding one that summarizes that with the right rhythm. Um, that without a mismatch. So anyway, and that process will take me a lot longer to do the verses, which is why I'm sharing this without finishing the verses. Maybe someday I'll finish the verses, maybe I won't. It's okay to have something that you want and something else that you turn in because it is a school, there are deadlines, and art sometimes doesn't appreciate deadlines. So do your best. It's okay if you have more of a vision than a finished song. But yeah, we'll get to there in the rubric. From there, the next thing to do was to record the chorus. I had a couple issues doing that. I do a thing where I will add another voice track so that I can record
one.
that I like in this track, and then I'm like, oh, but maybe it could be better. Well, then I'll go record one in this track instead, and I'll alternate and I'll keep my favorite each time until I have one I like best. I had some trouble as well. Oh, we have this one on solo. Mute that. Unmute that. And that garbled, distorted sound keeps happening. I'm not sure what causes it. Maybe BandLab is feeling overwhelmed with all the MIDI notes I put in here. To get this, I recorded it probably 6 or 7 times, changing things each time. I noticed that I was singing the word when, but I was singing it kind of like when, and it was closed down and in the back of my mouth. And so I didn't really like that sound in here. And so I opened it up instead and I said when, and got it here in my mouth. When. That was one of the things I tweaked. And you can see on the paper, I showed you a little bit ago, I put a circle above the lyric on my paper so that I remember, open it up. Um, the other thing I did was like, I kept singing it quietly here because I was recording this chorus and then also the chorus at the end. And I would sing this one really quietly, and then I would sing this one, and it was louder, more confident, and more reflective, which was perfect for the end. But I was like, this is the chorus, Grace. You need to sing this loudly and confidently. And like, everyone, when they get to the chorus, they all sing out loud because they know the words. That's the vibe you want for a chorus. So it took me some tries to go, no, this is the chorus. Sing it like it's the chorus, even though I haven't read the verse, so I can't sing the verse. Anyway, the other challenge I was having, like I said, was the audio kept bugging out and corrupting the tracks that would go instead of actually playing the singing that I had done. Um, and so that's part of why this is in several pieces. It really bugged out on the Bask in Sunshine section here. So I had to separately record that. And the same thing happened down here on the second one. But again, I don't know why that was happening. Maybe I can figure that out and tell you how to avoid it. What I had to do was just do it again until I didn't have it.
One leaf falls and I bask in sunshine. Blue skies steal my heartache. When I am driving on this clear October morning, all is well in my soul.
I added effects to this. I used the modern hook effect, which is a preset from their list here. And it adds so many things. I don't know what all these things are. D delay, space maker, dimension B. Yeah, no idea. I did not change any of these. Sometimes I do if I'm like, oh, room size. Yes, having it sound like it's in a huge room would sound cool. But yeah, I just played through several of these until I found one I liked. I did that loop thing again when I made it only play this section so that I could listen to it over and over with all the different ones. The BandLab education version does not seem to have any auto-tune, which is disappointing because that's a big part of modern music is auto-tuning the voice and making it sound that little bit of cool robot sound, and also helping you sing on key, even if you're not an amazing singer. So yeah, anytime that I sound a little off tune, it's because I am, and I can't change it in this setting of BandLab. Might be a reason to try some of your own personal audio recording stuff. You could even work on the audio track in a different editor and then bring it over if you really wanted to. The other thing I did is up here, this is the first time I changed this bit of the loop, but I made it, instead of just playing the block chords like it was, I opened them up, I played them one note at a time instead of all at the same time. And the other thing I did is I gave them all an extra half measure. So measure 57 ends here, and in the whole rest of the song, so would the B flat chord. But instead, I gave it 2 extra beats, a little more than 2 extra beats. I thought I gave it just 2 extra beats. Well, maybe I shouldn't change that right now because it might affect the other things. That's a longer fix than I'm going to do right now. Anyway, each chord has 2 extra beats, so this brings us with the rest of measure 58 and all of measure 59. And this one starts with all of measure 60 and half of measure 61. And then each of these get like 3/4 of that. So it's half a measure, but 1 more beat, and then half a measure, and 1 more beat. Maybe that one got 2 more beats, but it's the second to last, so that's okay. And then I looped it just enough to play the B flat chord one more time, because we do want to end with the chord of the key we're in. We started with a B flat chord, we end with a B flat chord, and that's what makes us think we're in the key of B flat. So yeah, that is all that I've done up to this point. We're now at step 7 of my little agenda, and that is to mix this. I learned this trick when I was starting work on this class. I think I'm going to delete this now or I'll wait till I like this recording that I'm making right now. But I am going to delete this track. I don't need it anymore. I just wanted to show you the fuzzy voice by the fan. Don't need this track. I just made it as an example. I'm going to keep this track because it has a copy of the chorus in the synth, and I may need to refer back to that again since I'm not done recording the voice. You can change the names of tracks to keep yourself organized. I think I'm going to put that here. Chorus archive. And move that out of the way. MIDI, and let me call this MIDI voice. Okay. So mixing and using the equalizer is something I learned about when I was preparing to teach this class. I did not know that before. And so I've only done it a couple times, but it's really cool. And I don't know that I made a great video explaining it, so I wanted to include this in this video just as an FYI. There's some places, and I'm thinking especially when my voice comes in for this first chorus here.
One leaf falls and I bask in sunshine, blue skies steal my day.
Where you can almost not hear the voice, even though that's kind of the point of the song at that point. And that's because there's so much else happening. So what our goal with mixing is to make sure we can hear every part separately and that the most important parts are the loudest parts. We have to watch out, especially for parts that sound kind of similar. So this felt piano track and the lo-fi piano track are going to be ones that are in competition with each other. Same thing with probably the road bass and the light posts bass. And then these dirty power chords just blast everything else out of the water. Not worried about the clouds whistle because it clearly stands out up there at the top on its own. Same thing with the drums. There's nothing else that's competing with the sound of the drums, at least from what I can hear right now. When we go look in the equalizer, it might be a different story. What I've already done is play with the volume levels over here a little bit. I brought the bass up. The piano hasn't been touched. The light posts are the volumes down a little bit. The drum machine is way down, as are the power chords, because those are both loud and they're not the point of this song, because the traffic is kind of just there. The rest is the part that's really was making me happy about the scene that I took this song from. The clouds are turned down too. That whistle is really shrill, and so as such, it does not need to be loud to stand out. And so it was overpowering when it was louder than this, and that got turned down. And then, of course, these are just, I haven't changed the volume at all. It might be smart to move the volume up. However, actually, you want a finished song to be sent out at plus or minus 0 decibels because you don't want it to be so loud that when someone clicks play, it breaks their speakers. So you want your finished song to be no louder on the whole than plus or minus 0 decibels. And if we want this to be the loudest thing, what we need to do is actually turn down all the other things that are louder. What we can also do is use the panning here to make it sound like one of these is coming from far left in the room and another is coming from far right. And that way, that can also help our ears pick it out and differentiate. I think I put some volume automation on. No, I have not changed the volume of any of these because the other thing you can do is have it set where it suddenly gets louder and then gets quieter again. And what we might do that for is a situation like here where suddenly the guitar comes in and even though it's turned down, it's drowning out the other things that have been happening. And so we might keep the other things low in this section, but then have them turn up automatically right here so that they can fight the power chords a little more strongly. Before I go in and do the automation or the panning or mess with any of this, what I'm also going to do is pull up the equalizer and see what's happening. So we're looking for graphic equalizer. There we go, graphic EQ. So you get there by clicking on the track and then FX effects, add effect, tone, graphic equalizer. And think maybe there's one more thing. Because that is not what I want. I want it to show me what it's already at, and I don't believe it that it's all just like that.
Bask in sunshine.
Okay, so maybe there's a different one. I want one to show me. Oh, there's a graphic EQ here. All right, so I paused the recording to do some research, and then I ended up going in and doing the mixing in Equalizer, just because I didn't want to let you watch me try to make decisions. Turns out I could not find a thing. When I learned how to do the graphic equalizer, the spin off. When I learned how to do the graphic equalizer, I was the video I was looking at and the sound editing system I was looking at showed you where the song was already strongest. So if it was a high sound, it would show that the song itself is making a lot of high sounds and it fits in that range. And that's what I could not find on BandLab anywhere. So I Googled it. I found this video, which I'll link in the description, where it talks about it. As bonus, it's what it looks like doing it on your phone. And I know some of you are working from your phone. Really helpful. It starts about halfway through where he starts explaining how the equalizer and the compression works. And what he's doing is, instead of needing BandLab to show you where this pitch is strong, he's using what it actually means. So the low hertz sounds are low sounds. 100, 200, 400, those are low hertz sounds, especially the 100. 3.2 thousand hertz is a middle sound, and 6.4 thousand is a really high sound. And so when we listen to the piano here, we know that's a middle to high sound. And so what I've done here is I've increased the middle to high sounds of this. And the other bit from the video he showed is always put it on solo, and I use this button to toggle it on and off. Make sure you like the sound of it with it on better. And then also make sure it's not a whole lot louder, and use this level button to adjust it at the end, which I think I actually should adjust. Now, the thing he didn't show is to use it, and all he did was increase the equalizer on the track he was editing. What I did some of is also decreasing it in some places where I don't want it to compete with other tracks. Like I said, the lo-fi piano and the felt piano are probably going to be the competitors here. And so you can see the pattern I gave the lo-fi piano, or the felt piano, partially because it has some lower notes than the lo-fi piano does. I also gave it some lower pitches that are strong. And so that hopefully makes them sound different enough from each other that your ear can pick them out more easily. The other thing I did is, because I know these two are competitors, I put one panned to the left so it sounds like it's coming from the left of the room, and the other panned to the right. So that way, again, it helps your ear pick out the difference. I did the same thing with the road drive bass and the light posts, where one is to the left, one is in the center. I could not talk myself into putting the item symbolizing the road anywhere the center. It just felt like a center kind of thing. But I did move the dance lead over to the left. And then I gave it a higher equalizer in the middle low range, whereas I gave this one, or I thought I gave this one. Yeah, okay. A bump in the low range. We're gonna redo that because that wasn't actually the way. I think I set the settings for this and then set them for this as well and didn't realize that I was editing the track I thought I wanted to. Okay, yeah, I like that a lot better. All right. Don't forget to save every time you change something, because this thing will lose your work if you don't. It has no autosave. Drums, gave some low and middle. Again, they're that low sound. I liked them better in the low sound. Again, I'm not a cymbals person, so that was what I was trying to dampen by not raising any of the high pitches. Put this in the middle low, put this in the very high, put this in the middle high. Tried to give this the same as my voice. See, that shape is very similar to this shape because they're doing the same job. They should be in the same spot. Any competitors with that? Who is in the middle range? Piano a little bit. And I put this piano there too. What can I do to differentiate between this piano and the voice?
One leaf falls and I bask in sunshine. Blue skies steal my heartache. When I'm driving on this clear October morning. When I'm driving on this, one leaf falls and I bask in sunshine. Blue skies steal my heartache. When I'm driving on this clear October morning, all is
Okay. I don't know what it is, but I don't think I actually like the equalizer and what it's doing to either of these vocal bits. It just sounds so much more open and warm without it. As I've said before, this is the main point of a song with vocals, is you want to hear the vocals. So I'm just going to let them be their basic settings, and I'm going to change everything else so that it sounds more balanced in the background.
one leaf falls and I bask in sunshine. Blue skies steal my heartache. When I'm driving on this clear October morning, all is well in my soul.
The balance with all of that is so much better than it was before. The other thing I also did is I lowered every bit of audio. I have my headphones in right now to listen to this, and I have my volume on my computer turned down almost to the bottom of the computer volume settings. This one is right here in the final 0 decibel setting because I feel like that's how loud it will be, unless you alter your volume. That's the basic setting of the volume. And I wanted it to not buzz my headphones at this volume, so I turned everything down a lot. Even the stuff I want to be front and center, my voice is here at -10 decibels. So that's that. I think this is the final track for right now. If you export it, like you download the file, I think it might um, might sound a little different, sound a little more round because um, they do some compressing when they export the final track. So I'm gonna download that, see how it sounds, play it for you, and call this video good for right now. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, reach out if you have any questions for me.